Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at the Portland Public Library, and I'm here again to do a read aloud for you. We're reading from Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Wrede from the Enchanted Forest Chronicles. This book is published by Scholastic, who is allowing us to read it to you. And we're going to start with Chapter 8 today. The last thing that has happened is that Kazul and Simmering are on a trip to go see the witch Morwen in the Enchanted Forest, and they're crossing through the caves of Fire and Night, which are the subject of some information that the wizards have been stealing lately. Chapter 8 is called In Which Simmering and Kazul Pay a Call and Simmering Gets into a Fight. A few minutes later, they came out of the caves of Fire and Night into bright sunlight. Simmering had to shade her eyes against the sudden glare. As her eyes adjusted, she saw a large clearing around the mouth of the cave. The ground was covered by short grass, so lush and dense that it made Simmering think of green fir. Here and there a tiny flower twinkled among the blades of grass, and at the edge of the clearing where the forest began, Simmering could only make out the first row of trees. They were so enormous, so large that they dwarfed even Kazul. "Leave the lamp here," Kazul said. "There's no sense in carrying it around the forest, and we won't need it until we come back." Simmering set the lamp on the ground just inside the mouth of the cave. "Now what?" she said. "Now we go to Morwen's," Kazul said, "and we'll get there more quickly if you ride. If you climb up on that rock over there, you ought to be able to get on my back without too much trouble." "Are you sure you don't mind?" Simmering said, scrambling up the rock Kazul had indicated. "I wouldn't have suggested it if I minded," Kazul said. "Right, there will be fine. You can hang on to the spike in front of you, and you won't foul my wings if I have to take off suddenly." Simmering did not like the implication that there were things in the enchanted forest that were nasty enough to make a dragon want to take off suddenly, but she did not say so. It was too late to back out, and she certainly wasn't going to wait at the mouth of the cave all along while Kazul went off to visit Morwen. There was no reason to think that waiting would be any safer than going along. As soon as Simmering was settled, Kazul set off into the forest at a rapid pace. At first, Simmering had to concentrate on holding on, but after a while she began to get the hang of it. Soon she was able to look at some of the things that were passing. The trees were huge, Simmering guessed, and she thought that even if there were 4 of her, holding hands, she would not be able to reach all the way around one of the trunks. The ground was carpeted with bright green moss that looked even thicker than the grass in the clearing. Simmering saw no flowers in it, but she spotted several bushes and a vine with 3 different colors of fruit. Kazul changed course several times for no reason that Simmering could see, but she did not like to distract the dragon by asking questions. They passed a mansion guarded by a fence made of gold and a short tower without any windows or doors. Then Kazul splashed through a shallow stream and made a sharp turn. The trees thinned a little, and Kazul stopped in front of a neat gray house with a wide porch and a red roof. Over the door was a black and gold sign in large block letters reading, "None of this nonsense, please." There were several cats of various sizes and colors perched on the porch railing or lying in the sun. As Simmering dismounted, Kazul said to one of them, "Won't you be good enough to let Morwen know that I'm here and I would like to talk to her?" The cat, a large gray tom, blinked its yellow eyes at Kazul. Then he jumped down from the porch rail and sauntered into the house, his tail held high, as if to say, "I'm doing this as a particular favor, mind, and don't you forget it." "He doesn't seem very impressed," Simmering commented in some amusement. "Why should he be?" Kazul said. "Well, you're a dragon," Simmering answered, a little taken aback. "What difference does that make to a cat?" Fortunately, Simmering did not have to find an answer, for at that moment Morwen appeared in the doorway. She was wearing the same black robe that she had worn when she had visited Simmering, or another one exactly like it, and she peered through her glasses with the air of someone studying an unexpected and rather peculiar puzzle. "Good morning, Kazul," she said after a moment. "This is a surprise." "Good," said Kazul. "If you aren't expecting us, no one else is either." "That's the way of things, isn't it?" Morwen commented thoughtfully. "How much of a hurry are you in?" "Not much of one, as long as no one knows we're here," Kazul replied. "Then Simmering had better get down and have something to drink," Morwen said in a tone that forbade contradiction. "There's cider or goat's milk, though if you want that, you'll have the cats after you. Or I could put a kettle on for tea. Good gracious, what have you done to your hand? While Morwen had been talking, Simmering had turned and slid carefully down Kazul's side. It was a long slide, and when her feet hit the ground, she had put out a hand to keep from falling. Morwen's exclamation made her blink in surprise, and she looked down. The palm of her right hand was covered with blood from half a dozen deep slashes and as many scrapes. Oh dear, Simmering said. It must have happened in the caves while it was dark. I didn't realize. It doesn't hurt at all. Hurting or not, it needs attention, Morwen said firmly. Come inside, and I'll see to it while Kazul tells me why you're here. You'll have to go round back this time, she added, turning to Kazul. The front steps won't take the weight. A gnome stole one of the supports, and I haven't had time to get it fixed yet. Pesky creatures, they're worse than mice. Don't the cats keep the mice away? Simmering asked, mildly puzzled. Yes, but they don't do a thing about gnomes, which is why gnomes are worse. Mind the step. Kazul started walking while Morwen shooed Simmering up the wooden steps and into the house. Several of the cats eyed Simmering curiously as she passed, and a tortoiseshell kitten got up and followed her in. The front door led to a large, airy room with an iron stove in one corner. There was a good deal of furniture, but everything except the table and the stove had at least one cat on the top of it. Morwen frowned at a fat and fluffy Persian that was sitting on one of the chairs. The cat stood up, yawned, gave its front paws a cursory lick or two, just to show that this was all his own idea, and jumped down onto the floor. As Simmering sat down in the vacated chair, there was a knock on the wooden door on the opposite side of the room. That'll be Kazul, Morwen said. She crossed to the door and opened it. Come in, I'll get you some cider as soon as I've seen to Simmering's hand. Morwen's back door did not seem to get any larger, and Kazul certainly did not get any smaller, but when she put her head through the doorway, her scales did not even scrape the sides. The rest of her followed with no apparent difficulty, and somehow there was plenty of room in the kitchen even after she got inside. Kazul settled down along the far wall, where she would be out of the way, and as soon as she stopped moving, 6 cats jumped into various positions on her tail, back, and shoulder. Neither Kazul nor Morwen seemed to notice. Morwen took a small tin box from the shelf beside the stove and sat down at the table beside Simmering. Now, tell me what you're here for, she said, taking a roll of linen and 2 jars of ointment out of the box. Apart from my cider, I mean. Simmering had some interesting visitors yesterday, Kazul said. Well, if they were interesting, they can't have been knights, Morwen commented. They weren't, Kazul said. They were wizards. And they went to a lot of trouble to take a look at my copy of the Historia Dracorum, the part that describes the caves of fire and night. And do you think that's why they've been sniffing around the mountains of mourning for the past 6 months? Morwen said. How did you find out what they were looking at? Or did they ask permission? I don't think Zemnar would ask for permission for anything if he was sure that he would get it. Simmering said he'd consider it beneath him. No, I saw him shut the book, and he was only a little further on from where I'd left my bookmark. Ow, that stings. Good, said Morwen. It's supposed to. She closed the jar of salve that she had been smearing on Simmering's palm and began to wrap the injured hand in the linen bandage. Did Zemnar get what he was after? I don't think so, Simmering said. He said he wanted to come back for another visit, and I don't think he would have done that if he'd found what he was looking for. That seems like a reasonable assumption, Morwen said, though wizards aren't always reasonable. There, that should take care of things. Don't take the bandage off for at least 4 days, and if you're going to cook anything that has fennel in it, stir left-handed. Zemnar's interest in the Historia Dracorum isn't the only thing that points to his curiosity about the caves of fire at night, Kazul said, and explained about the book that had been stolen. There have been other incidents as well, and nearly all the wizards we've caught poking around have been somewhere in or near the caves. That's why no one thought much about it at first. Ever since King Tokaz made the agreement with the Society of Wizards, they've been claiming that they're supposed to have more time in the caves than we're willing to give them. Everyone thought this was more of the same. Not everyone, Morwen said, giving Kazul a sharp look. I'm widely considered to be unduly suspicious of everyone and everything, Kazul said in a dry tone, particularly wizards. And what do your suspicions make of this business? I think Zemnar is trying to find out about the caves of the fire and night. Something, Kazul said, something he has not been able to learn from visiting the caves in person, hence his recent interest in histories that describe the cave, however briefly. And you're hoping that I have something in my library that will help you figure out what it is, Morwen concluded. I don't hope, said Kazul. I know. Unless someone has run off with your copy of de Montmorency's A Journey Through the Caves of Fire and Night. If someone has, he'll regret it, Morwen said. Wait here and I'll check. She rose and went out. Through the doorway, Simmering could see a room full of dark, stained shelves. Simmering blinked. Isn't that the door that you came through? She asked Kazul. Kazul nodded. Of course. I thought it led into Morwen's yard. It leads wherever Morwen wants it to lead, Kazul said. I see, said Simmering, wishing her father's court philosopher were there. He was very pompous and stuffy, particularly about magic, which he claimed was 90% trickery and the rest illusion. Simmering had found him very trying. Dealing with Morwen's door would probably have given him a headache. Morwen came back into the kitchen holding a thin red book. Here it is. I'm sorry it took me so long to find, but the nonfiction isn't organized as well as it should be yet. Kazul surged to her feet, shutting cats in all directions. The cats gave her reproachful looks, and then stalked out the front door with affronted dignity. Kazul paid no attention. She curled her head around to peer at the book over Morwen's shoulder. I suppose you'll want to borrow it, Morwen said. I certainly do, Kazul said. Is there a problem? Only if it gets stolen, Morwen said. There are very few of these around, and I'm not sure I could replace it. I'll keep it in the vault with the treasure, Kazul promised. Zumnar won't think to look for it there, and even if he does, he won't get in. I've got enough anti-wizard spells on the door to stop the whole society. They can't get in unless someone invites them. All right, Morwen said, handing the book to Kazul. Is that everything you came for? No, said Kazul. She looked at Morwen with limpid eyes and went on in a plaintive tone. I still haven't had any cider. Morwen laughed and went to one of the cupboards. She pulled out 2 mugs and a large mixing bowl and filled them with an amber-colored liquid she poured from a heavy-looking pottery jug. She set the mixing bowl in front of Kazul and gave one of the mugs to Simmering, then sat down with a second mug herself. They were in Morwen's kitchen for over an hour, drinking cider and speculating about what the wizards were up to. After a while, several of the cats came back, and Morwen gave them a dish of goat's milk, which soothed their ruffled feelings somewhat. How is that fireproof spell of yours coming? Morwen asked as she returned to the table. I have everything I need, except for the powdered hen's teeth, and I'm beginning to think I'm never going to find any, Simmering said. Kazul has offered to let me look through the jars in the treasury, but if there isn't any there, I don't know where I'll look next. Really? Morwen said, giving Kazul a sharp look. Well, if you can't find any hen's teeth, you could try substituting snake fingernails or the hair of a turtle's egg. I wouldn't try it except for as a last resort, though. Altering spells is a tricky business. At last they had to leave. Kazul went out the same way that she had come in, while Simmering watched in fascination. Then Simmering and Morwen went to the front porch. Kazul sidled up to the house, and Simmering stood on the porch railing to climb onto her back. The cats were seriously affronted by this maneuver, and expressed their displeasure in reproachful glares and low yowls. Don't take any notice, Morwen said. It only encourages them. Simmering nodded. Thank you for everything. You're quite welcome, Morwen answered. Don't wait too long to come back again. You'd better take this, Princess, Kazul said, reaching back over her shoulder to hand Morwen's book to Simmering. I can't carry it and run at the same time. Simmering took the book and tucked it into her pocket. I'm all set, she said, and they started off. Simmering enjoyed the ride back to the Mountains of Morning. She was now sufficiently accustomed to riding on Dragon to be able to concentrate on looking at the forest as it flashed past. The trees seemed almost identical to each other, but Simmering spotted quite a few odd-looking bushes and vines, and twice she thought she saw small faces staring out from among leafy branches. They reached the threshold of the caves much sooner than Simmering expected. Kazul waited while she slid to the ground, and then said, The entrance is a little narrow. I'll go first to make sure there's nothing unpleasant waiting for us. Simmering nodded, and Kazul vanished into the cave. Before Simmering could follow, she heard a shrill cry above her. She looked up and saw an enormous white bird plummeting towards her, its clawed feet extended to attack. For an instant, Simmering was frozen by surprise and fear. Then she ducked and reached for her sword. She was almost too slow. The bird was on top of her, shrieking and slashing before she had done more than grasp the hilt of her weapon. But the sword seemed to leap out of the scabbard as soon as she touched it, and she swung clumsily as she rolled aside. She did not expect to do any damage, just to force the bird back a little, but she felt the sword connect and heard a wail of pain from the bird. Thanking all of her lucky stars, individually and by name, Simmering twisted and scrambled to her feet, sword ready. There was nothing for her to guard against. The sword stroke had been more effective than she realized. The bird was dying. As she stared at it, it raised its head. "You killed me?" the bird said incredulously. "But you're a maiden." "Actually, she's a princess," Gazul's voice said from behind Simmering. "My princess, so you'd have been in even bigger trouble if you'd succeeded in carrying her off." "I don't think I could have done it if I hadn't had a magic sword," said Simmering, who was beginning to wish she hadn't. She had never heard anything before, and she didn't like it. "Just my luck," the bird said disgustedly. "Oh well, fair's fair. You killed me, so you get my forfeit." "You're not dead yet," Simmering said. "If you let me near, I can try to stop the bleed." "Not a chance," the bird said. It was beginning to sound rather faint. "Do you want the forfeit, or don't you?" "Take it," Gazul advised. Simmering said nothing, and after a moment the bird said, "All right then. Under my left wing you will find 3 black feathers. If you drop one and wish to be somewhere else, you'll find yourself there in the twinkling of an eye. Any questions?" "Can I take anyone else with me?" Simmering asked, thinking that the bird was so determined to give her the feathers she might as well cooperate with it. The bird looked at her with respect. "Will wonders never cease? For once a human with sense is getting the forfeit. Yes, you can take someone with you, as long as you're touching them. Same for objects. If you can carry it, you can take it with you. You'll get 1 trip per feather, that's it." "But," Simmering said, and stopped. The bird's head had fallen back, and it was quite clearly dead. "Don't feel too bad," Gazul said perceptibly. "If it had succeeded in carrying you off, it would have fed you to its nestlings." "Fed me to its nestlings?" Simmering discovered that she had lost some of her sympathy for the dead bird. What a horrid thing to do. She hesitated. "Won't the nestlings starve now that the bird is dead?" "No, one of the other birds will take over the chore of feeding them for a few weeks until they're big enough to catch their own food," Gazul said. "Now clean the sword and take your feathers and let's get going. I want to have a look at that book of Morwen's." Simmering nodded and did as she was told. The 3 black feathers were right where the bird had said, and she put them in her pocket with Morwen's book and the black pebble from the caves of fire and night. She wiped the sword on the grass several times and then finished cleaning it with her handkerchief. When she finished, she left her handkerchief beside the dead bird and followed Gazul into the caves of fire and night. And that's the end of the chapters we're going to be reading for today. Join us on Monday of next week when we'll pick up with Chapter 9, in which Thranduil is a dreadful nuisance and Simmering casts a spell. Thank you so much for listening to Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Wrede, the first book of the Enchanted Forest Chronicles. It's published by Scholastic, who's allowing us to read it to you, and we're very thankful for them. Once again, I'm Sarah Mari, and I'm from Portland Public Library. I hope to see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend, and bye.